the first 10, 20, 30, 60 seconds of your presentation feels the shakiest, raise your hand. Go ahead, you can do it. You'll have lots of company. I've asked this question to researchers with 100 people in the room, and most of them raise their hand. Most research presentations start a bit shaky, start a bit slow, start with the speaker having some uneasiness, having to warm up into the room. If you want to start strong, if you want to be the researcher who steps on stage and immediately captures the room, stick around for this video. I'm going to teach you 5 things, only one of which is about content. And even that one, it's not about the content the way you think it will be. So let's start with that one. When I say about content, you're thinking, oh, start with a hook, start with a story, start with something interesting. That's true. I do want you to start with something interesting. But what I want you to think about is what's interesting for you. So let's start by talking about what tends to not be interesting for us, what's not interesting for us as speakers, what makes us uneasy as speakers. 2 things. 1, our own name and our own credentials. Hi, my name's Andrew Churchill and I'm a presentation coach and I've helped over 10,000 academic researchers in the last 10 years. I don't want to talk about that stuff. I don't want to be saying that about myself. I never start that way. If someone wants to introduce me that way, I'm all for it, but I'm not going to say that about myself. So don't start with the name of your talk. People don't understand it yet. Don't start with your own name and your own credentials. And don't start with background that people don't know whether or not they care about. Start with something that you want to start with. You already know all the background. That's not interesting for you. Start with something you want to tell us about your research. Start someplace interesting, because then you're going to start, instead of that uneasiness of that opening moment being compounded with you talking about something that you're maybe uncomfortable talking about, or at best not uncomfortable but not particularly interested in because you've known it for a long time. It's background, it's stuff. Start with something that you're excited to share. Start with something that you're excited to share, because then we see that excitement. Then you feel that excitement. Then you're in that moment of uneasiness, that first moment in the room when you're looking out at the room, you're getting to say something that you're excited about saying. Uneasiness, anxiety, nervousness about speaking, that's a big feeling. That's not a little feeling, that's a big feeling. So if we combat it with sharing something exciting, talking about something we want to talk about, then we're fighting a big feeling with a big feeling that's a good one instead of a bad one. Fight fire with fire, right? Fight fire with fire. You need to start in a place where you're excited to start. You need to start with something that you're excited to talk about. It either can be complex or not. It can be heavy or not. I've seen both work. So you can start with a joke, you can start with an anecdote, you can start with something light. You can also start with something complicated, something complex, as long as we see in you your commitment to it. Because it's your commitment that makes for a great opening. That commitment to your content makes for a great opening. So don't think hook. Don't think, oh, I have to start with something that everybody's going to be excited about. Start with something you're going to be excited about, because it's actually your nerves that have to be overcome. Like, the audience is okay. The audience is there to listen to you. When you start nervous, when it takes you a minute to get through that, you've already lost some of them. And that first impression's already been made. So content's a piece of this puzzle. But remember, that opening content is as much about you having something that you feel good about saying. So when you walk up on that stage, you look like you feel good about being there, because you do. Because you do. And that's going to change how you open your next presentation. All right, I said 5 things. That's only 1. So we got 4 more to talk about. Let's talk about those other 4. None of them will be as long, okay? One of those other 4 is that you've been spending too much time practicing. You've been spending too much time focusing your practice on just the content, right? Just the content. You run through the slides quietly. You practice the opening line, but your practice is focused on the content, not the experience. Let me say that again. Your practice is focused on the content, delivering the content, not living the experience. So you need to practice the experience a bit more. You need to get up in a big room with seats. If you're in a university, in a classroom, and go stand in the front of the room, and you need to practice 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, sitting there before a talk is going to happen, maybe listening to a YouTube video of someone else talking, and then walking to the front of the room and starting. So you're in a bigger space, and you're practicing the lead up to the opening. You're not just practicing from your first line, but you're practicing from before that, the lead into that. Okay? We're going to come back to that at the end. We're going to talk some more about that. Okay? I'm going to give you a specific strategy to do that well. Okay? So another piece of this puzzle is that we often present in rooms that are unfamiliar, right? We walk into the room before, maybe right before, and suddenly we're in this new space and we're trying to figure out, okay, how does this work, and how does this, now we're not thinking about our talk, we're thinking about the space. Go get familiar with the space. You know where your presentation is going to be. Go there the day before, or go there 4 hours before, or go there a week before if you can. But make the room familiar so that you know the size of the stage, you know where the clicker's going to be or where the podium will be, you know where the slides will be, and you're not stepping into that space kind of trying to get your bearings on the space while you're trying to start. So we want the experience of being in the front of the room. We want the experience of the opening. But we also want in general, we want that experience. But we also want the specific experience. This is why I do the 3-minute thesis coaching at McGill. And we talk about this. We do reps on this, on the opening. We introduce people and they step up and they start talking, so that we can rep that opening moment, and we map out the experience, the stage. We block out what the stage will look like. Okay, I was coaching an event. I was coaching like 10 speakers in an event in Toronto a year ago. It wasn't actually an academic event. It was a professional coaches event. And one of the things I did with the person running the event, a guy named Rob Gilbert, one of the things I did was I got him to take pictures of the venue and send them to the presenters a month out, 2 months out. He had pictures of where we're going to be. I said, send the pictures of the stage to the presenters so that that stage space starts becoming familiar. So that opening starts becoming familiar. Are they coming from behind the stage, or are they coming from out of the audience? Are they being introduced? Are they not being introduced? We want that opening experience to start to become familiar. And then once that opening experience starts to become familiar, we want to do a couple things with it. One, we want to have a really clear starting point. A lot of times we kind of come out and we wander around and we look around, and then we start talking. We might start talking quietly, and then our voice picks up a little bit, or we're not quite sure. We know what our opening line is, but we don't know when to say it. Do we say it when we're back here? Do we say it when do I start? Right? So one of the things I want you to do is create a trigger for yourself, okay? Think about creating a trigger for yourself for when you start that opening line. We'll go back to the 3-minute thesis for a moment. The introduction happens when the students are off stage. So it's PhDs and master's students. They're talking about their research in 3 minutes. They get introduced. The people who introduce them step off stage. They step on stage. People are clapping. They look at the audience. And then I talk to them about having a trigger. So from here, okay, the question is, what's your trigger? Are you going to come forward? Are you going to pause? Are you going to look? And then are you going to start? It's a good way to do it. It's a great way to do it. If you can wait and look, if you have the confidence and the presence to do that, fantastic. That will make a great opening moment. But if you're nervous, if you're still watching this video at this point, you probably have some nerves, right? That's what we're talking about. What you want to do is you actually want the trigger to be, so you're going to breathe here. And then you're going to start talking here. You're going to start talking. So the trigger is going to be that second step. That's when you start talking while you're still moving forward, while you're looking at the audience. Okay? And that's going to be the trigger for you to start. Then there's no uncertainty in your start. We've removed that uncertainty in the start because now there's a trigger. You know exactly, you're going to say that first word on your second step forward. Step forward, pause, step, start talking. And notice my hand. I'm doing something here, right? You don't need to be doing that, but you need to be doing something. You need to actually script out this opening moment. If you noticed in the beginning of this video, I think I took my glasses off, right? They were on, I took them off. But it was something to do. It was an action. And that's really important. So think about, what action will you start with? What gesture can you make that makes sense, that fits with what you're saying, but's active and bigger than you, right? It's not something small in here. You're not standing here starting. You're stepping forward and starting here with some sort of gesture, some sort of movement, some sort of interesting thing is happening. It doesn't even have to be looking at the audience. You can be talking about something. You could be talking about a slide and gesturing to it. Some sort of gesture, some sort of purposeful movement. I'm not about scripting movements through your whole talk. We don't want to script every moment of your talk. It starts to look performative. Your talk becomes performative. But if we script that opening movement, and you know there's going to be a trigger and a step, and then you're going to do something and you're going to say something, and it's something you're excited to share with people. It's something that you want to actually talk about. You're starting in a place that you're excited to talk about, that you want people to know. You're through the first 30 seconds. You're through that opening moment. And that's what we were talking about in this video, is how do we get through that opening moment? That's all we're trying to do, right? So this opening moment it's not really about creating a hook that's going to engage your audience. It's really about starting in a place where you're interested because you have some nervousness, you have some anxiety. Now you have something you're excited to share and talk about. Now you have an opening you feel good about. You're talking about something in the beginning you feel good about talking about. You feel confident about talking about. You're not talking about your experience. You're not talking about your background. You're not repeating the title of your talk that you're worried people might not even understand yet. But you're talking about something you think they will understand. You're telling them something that you want them to know and you think is important. And that's going to make you feel good about that opening. And then you've practiced the experience a bit. You've practiced the time before you start. You've practiced the room. You've envisioned the room a little bit. You know where things are. You're not kind of fumbling around. You know how big the stage is. You know you're going to stand where, you know where you're going to stand when you're being introduced. And you know you're going to take a breath, you're going to look around, and then you're going to step forward and start talking. And as you start talking, you're going to do X, Y, or Z. And then you're through that opening moment and you've nailed it. You've done a great job in that opening moment. And that's 90% of the time, that's the hardest part for everybody. The hardest part for everybody is that starting point, is that opening 15, 20, 30, 45 seconds. And then they get going, and then you're talking about your work, and you get kind of lost in your own work, and you know what you're doing at that point. And you start to get comfortable with the audience, and people have smiled, some people have laughed. But you need to have a strategy for that opening. And that opening strategy will change everything. Not just about content, not just about hook. It's about how do you step into the presence, claim the space of the stage from the first second, from even really before the first second, from the first moment people see you, from the first moment you walk onto that stage. And when you do that, you're going to be more effective. People's first impression of you is going to be of someone who has confidence, someone who has presence. And that first impression makes a big difference. That first impression adds to our credibility, adds to our trust, adds to people liking us. Those things matter. Those things make a big difference. That first 30 seconds is never fun. When we walk tentatively and we start tentatively, we just can't wait to get through that. Now, like you have a script, you have a trigger, you have this, and you're stepping out and you're starting. And now you're not as nervous before you start because you know you'll start well. And you know how you'll start. And those are two critical pieces to every great talk. Great talks have great beginnings and great endings. We'll save talking about great endings for another day. Today, we've been talking about great beginnings. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you. And if you enjoyed, if you learned something from this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, check out some other videos. If you're a PhD or a postdoc and you're interested in getting some presentation training, getting some presentation coaching, be sure to check out the asynchronous online digital platform that I've created specifically for people like you. And we'll see you again soon.